Sometimes the people who look the most broken are carrying the most powerful stories within them. This is not just about kindness. It's about how one small act of humanity can change two lives forever. Imagine a single father barely holding his own life together, suddenly opening his door to a stranger. A girl crying in the cold night, with nothing but pain in her eyes. What he didn't know was that she wasn't just a homeless girl. She was the daughter of one of the richest CEOs in the city. And what happened next will leave you believing in destiny. The rain poured down in heavy sheets, beating against the rusted roof of the small, old house where Daniel lived with his little daughter Lily. The night was unusually cold, the kind of cold that seeps through the cracks of the walls and lingers in the bones. Daniel stirred a pot of soup on the stove, the aroma of broth and vegetables filling the dimly lit kitchen. It wasn't much, just a simple dinner, but it was all he could afford. Bills were stacked like a mountain on the corner of the table, and his heart carried the quiet weight of worry that never seemed to leave. Yet when Lily ran up to him with her bright eyes and a wide smile, he reminded himself that no matter how heavy life became, her presence was his reason to keep going. Lily's voice cut through the steady sound of rain. "Daddy, is it almost ready?" she asked, her small hands clutching her teddy bear. Daniel smiled faintly. "Almost, sweetheart. Just a few more minutes." He tried to hide the stress in his tone, but Lily always sensed more than he gave her credit for. Then a sound interrupted their little world, a soft but urgent knock at the door. Daniel froze for a moment. At this hour, in this weather, who could it possibly be? His first thought was hesitation. Life had taught him not to trust so easily. With quiet steps, he approached the door and slowly unlatched it. What he saw left him stunned. Standing there in the pouring rain was a young woman, maybe in her early 20s. Her hair was plastered to her face, her clothes clung to her thin frame, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked fragile, broken, and utterly exhausted. Her lips trembled as she spoke in a voice so faint he had to lean forward to catch her words. "Please, I don't mean to bother you. I just need somewhere safe for tonight. Just a corner, anywhere, please." Daniel's mind raced. He didn't know this woman. She could be anyone. And with Lily in the house, his instinct was to protect first, trust later. He looked at her again, and he saw more than just a stranger. He saw a human being shivering, soaking wet, and desperate. But still, doubt gnawed at him. Before he could respond, Lily peeked out from behind his leg, her innocent voice breaking the silence. "Daddy, she's cold. Can we help her?" Those words pierced Daniel's heart deeper than any logic or fear could. He looked down at Lily's pleading eyes and then back at the stranger. She wasn't carrying bags, she had no umbrella, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in days. He could almost hear the storm outside pushing her closer to collapse. Daniel sighed softly, his shoulders heavy with conflict, but compassion won the battle. He stepped aside, his voice low but firm. "Come in. You can stay until the rain stops." The girl hesitated, as if even kindness felt foreign to her. Then, with trembling steps, she crossed the threshold, dripping water onto the wooden floor. Daniel fetched an old towel and handed it to her, while Lily rushed off to her room and returned with her beloved teddy bear, pressing it into the stranger's hands. "This will keep you safe," she said with a smile. The girl's lips quivered again, this time from emotion rather than cold. She clutched the teddy bear as if it was the first gift she had received in years. She whispered, "Thank you. I don't deserve this, but thank you." Daniel didn't reply right away. He busied himself with the soup, ladling a steaming bowl and placing it on the table for her. She sat quietly, hands wrapped around the bowl, staring into it as though it were more than food. It was a lifeline. Lily sat beside her, chatting innocently about school, about her drawings, about how her daddy makes the best soup even when it's just vegetables. Daniel watched them from across the table. He still didn't know this girl's name, didn't know what her story was, or why she was standing on his doorstep in the middle of a storm. But in that moment, he realized something important. Sometimes people don't need answers. They just need shelter, warmth, and someone to say, "You are safe now." What he didn't know was that this decision, this small act of kindness, would change all of their lives forever. The days that followed blurred gently into one another, carrying a strange rhythm Daniel hadn't expected. The young woman, who finally introduced herself as Emily, settled quietly into their small home. She didn't talk much about her past, only repeating the same line whenever Daniel asked too many questions. "I've lost everything." There was something final, almost painful, in the way she said it, as if every word carried the weight of a memory she couldn't bear to revisit. But even in her silence, Emily's presence began to change the air in the house. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She slowly became part of the daily life. In the mornings, Daniel would wake up early to prepare Lily's breakfast before rushing to his construction job. And more often than not, he'd return to find the dishes already cleaned, Lily's homework spread neatly on the table, and Emily humming softly while folding laundry. She never asked for thanks, never demanded recognition, but her quiet acts of kindness spoke louder than words. Lily, with her boundless innocence, quickly grew attached to Emily. To her, Emily wasn't a stranger anymore. She was someone who braided her hair before school, someone who read bedtime stories with a voice that carried warmth, someone who listened patiently to her endless chatter about school projects and playground games. Emily laughed at Lily's silly jokes, clapped at her crayon drawings as though they belonged in an art gallery, and even helped her build a cardboard castle in the living room. For Lily, Emily filled a gap she didn't even realize existed, the presence of a gentle, nurturing figure. Daniel, however, remained cautious. His protective instincts kept him at a distance, even as he observed Emily's bond with his daughter. He couldn't deny the difference she made in their lives. The house felt less heavy, Lily laughed more, and even he found himself smiling at moments he normally would have ignored. Still, a part of him wondered who Emily really was. Homelessness rarely came wrapped in a girl with such grace, with manners that hinted at an upbringing far different from his own. There were times he caught her staring out the window at night, her eyes distant, filled with a sorrow he couldn't quite place. One evening, while washing dishes side by side, he asked gently, "Emily, do you have anyone looking for you? Family? Friends?" She stiffened, her hands trembling slightly in the soapy water. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. Then softer, almost broken, she added, "Family doesn't always mean home." The finality in her voice told him not to press further. So he didn't. Despite the mystery surrounding her, Daniel couldn't ignore the gratitude in his heart. Emily asked for nothing, no money, no favors. She simply gave what she could, whether it was time, care, or a gentle smile that seemed to brighten Lily's whole world. For a man who had spent years carrying the weight of responsibility alone, her presence was unexpectedly comforting. But Emily wasn't without her own struggles. Late at night, when Daniel thought she was asleep, he sometimes heard muffled sobs coming from the living room. She tried to be quiet, burying her face in the couch pillow, but the pain in her cries was undeniable. He never confronted her about it, perhaps out of respect, perhaps out of fear that she'd run if he pried too much. Still, it tore at him. He had always believed he had enough problems of his own, but now, watching her try to hide her brokenness, he felt a strange urge to protect her too. The bond between Emily and Lily only deepened with time. One afternoon, Daniel came home early from work to find them sitting at the table, crayons scattered everywhere, Lily teaching Emily how to draw. "See, like this," Lily exclaimed proudly, holding up a stick figure family with 3 smiling faces. Emily stared at the drawing for a long moment before tears filled her eyes. She quickly wiped them away, but Daniel saw, and it stirred something inside him. Emily was beginning to feel like part of their little family, even if she never said it aloud. Her walls were slowly crumbling, not in grand confessions, but in small moments. A laugh at dinner, a whispered thank you when Lily hugged her goodnight, a soft smile when Daniel offered her a cup of tea after work. Still, questions lingered. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was running from something bigger than he could imagine. She carried herself with a kind of grace that didn't match the story of someone who had simply fallen on hard times. The way she spoke, the way she held her fork, even the faint accent in her words, it all hinted at a background far removed from his modest world. Yet, every time he thought about pushing for answers, he stopped himself. Maybe it didn't matter who she had been before. Maybe what mattered was who she was becoming now, in this small house with him and Lily. And in truth, Emily was finding something she had never experienced before. A home where love didn't come with conditions, where kindness wasn't transactional, where even the smallest meal felt like a feast because it was shared with people who truly cared. She had walked away from a life of wealth and luxury, but here, in the warmth of a single father's kindness and a little girl's innocent affection, She discovered something money could never buy: belonging. What Daniel didn't know was that his decision to open the door that rainy night hadn't just given Emily shelter. It was slowly healing wounds inside her heart that even her family's fortune could never mend. And what Emily didn't know was that her presence was slowly teaching Daniel that even in his hardest struggles, he wasn't as alone as he thought. The crisp afternoon sun bathed the neighborhood in golden light as Daniel walked home with Lily's small hand tucked into his. Her laughter rang through the air as she skipped beside him, chattering about the story Emily had promised to read that evening. For Daniel, these small walks had become the moments he cherished most. Life was still hard, bills still weighed heavily, but lately, there was something different, something lighter in his heart. He had grown used to Emily's presence, her gentle voice filling the house, her quiet support easing his burdens, her bond with Lily weaving itself seamlessly into their everyday life. As they turned the corner onto their street, Daniel froze. Parked in front of his house were several black luxury cars, their polished surfaces glinting in the sunlight. Men in suits stood by the vehicles, their expressions serious, their eyes scanning the surroundings with sharp attention. Daniel's grip on Lily's hand instinctively tightened. His chest filled with unease. Something was happening. The front door opened before he could reach it, and Emily stepped out, her face pale, her body tense. For a fleeting second, Daniel saw fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that comes when secrets can no longer be hidden. One of the suited men rushed toward her, calling her name urgently. "Miss Emily?" "Thank God we found you." Daniel stopped in his tracks, confusion hitting him like a wave. "Miss Emily? Found you?" His mind struggled to make sense of what was unfolding. The men stepped aside, and from the back seat of the sleekest car, an older man emerged. His presence was commanding, the kind that spoke of authority and wealth. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and stern yet emotional gaze left no doubt. This was someone powerful. He walked straight to Emily, his voice breaking slightly as he said, "Emily, my daughter." The word struck Daniel harder than he expected. "Daughter?" His heart thudded in his chest. He looked at Emily, desperate for an explanation. Emily's lips trembled as she met his gaze. She couldn't hide anymore. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice filled with both sorrow and relief. "I didn't tell you the truth. I'm not just some girl who lost her way. I'm the daughter of Richard Hayes, CEO of Hayes Enterprises." She took a shaky breath, her eyes glistening. "I walked away from that life. The lies, the betrayals. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to escape. I needed to feel human again. That's why I ended up here on your doorstep, that night in the rain." Daniel felt as though the ground beneath him had shifted. His mind replayed every moment since she arrived, her manners, her mysterious silence, the grace in her every gesture. It all made sense now, but sense didn't stop the ache in his chest. She wasn't who he thought she was. She was someone who belonged to a world far beyond his reach. Lily, innocent and oblivious to the weight of the revelation, tugged at Emily's dress. "Emily, are you leaving us?" she asked softly, her wide eyes brimming with tears. Emily dropped to her knees, pulling Lily into a tight embrace. Her voice cracked. "Sweetheart, you gave me a family when I didn't have one. You and your daddy showed me love that I'd never known. I don't want to leave, not if I can help it." Richard Hayes watched, conflicted. He had spent months searching for his daughter, fearing for her safety, aching to bring her home. Yet here she was, clinging to a little girl and a man who clearly cared for her deeply. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to tell Emily to stay, to fight for what they had built together, but doubt clawed at him. What could he give her? He was just a struggling single father with bills he could barely pay. She belonged to wealth, to power, to a world that didn't include him. But before he could speak, Emily rose to her feet, determination blazing in her eyes. She turned to her father, her voice steady. "Dad, I know you want me back, but you have to understand. What I found here is real. Money never gave me peace. Status never gave me love. But here, with Daniel and Lily, I felt alive for the first time. I found family." Her father studied her, silence stretching between them. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders softening. "Emily, if this is truly what makes you happy, then I won't stand in your way." His eyes flickered toward Daniel, measuring him, then softened. "You gave my daughter shelter when she had nothing. For that, you have my respect." Daniel's heart pounded. Emily's father wasn't taking her away. Relief flooded through him, followed swiftly by disbelief. Could it really be possible that someone like her would choose to stay with someone like him? Emily turned back to Daniel, her eyes shining with tears. I don't care about titles, Daniel. I don't care about the fortune I walked away from. What I care about is the kindness you showed me when I was nothing, when I had nowhere to go. You didn't see a millionaire's daughter. You just saw a girl who needed help. And that's the man I want to be with. Her words broke down the last wall Daniel had kept around his heart. He stepped forward, his hand finding hers, and for the first time, he didn't hold back. Then stay, he whispered. Stay with us. Lily squealed with joy, hugging them both, her little voice filling the air. Now we're really a family. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she laughed through the emotion. For the first time in years, she wasn't running, wasn't hiding. She had chosen her place, and it was here, in the warmth of a small house, with a little girl who loved her like a sister, and a man whose kindness had saved her. The luxury cars slowly pulled away, leaving only the three of them standing together in the fading light of the afternoon. And as Daniel wrapped his arm around Emily and Lily, he realized that sometimes the greatest riches in life aren't found in bank accounts or company empires, but in the simple, fragile, and priceless gift of love. One rainy night changed everything. A door opened, a heart softened, and strangers became family. And in that little house they discovered the truth, that kindness and love are the greatest fortunes of all.